And we are live. Okay, so again, you guys, anytime you have a question, please text me. But I've got 3 questions that came in from a student, and I'd like to take a look at section 4.1b, which was the homework we did a while ago. And question 16 was asked, how do I get the answer of 2 cube roots 4? So let me do that one. So first of all, 16 is 8 divided by the cube root of 16. Okay. Now let's go back to what our perfect cube root numbers are. So our cube root numbers, a perfect cube root, there's a cube root of 8, there's a cube root of 27, so forth and so on. So what I want to do is this. First of all, let me rewrite this one right here, 16. So I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to keep the 8 on top because 8 is a regular whole number. Leave that where it is. But the cube root of 16 can be the cube root of 8 times the cube root of 2. Alright, so that's going to help me sum, because then what I can do is reduce that one right there into just plain old 2. So let me keep going. That's then going to be a 8 over, now the cube root of 8 is 2, right? Because 2 times 2 times 2, cube root of 8 is 2 times a cube root of 2. Now, I'm going to reduce that right there. 8 divided by regular 2, whole number, divided by whole number is just plain old 4, divided by the cube root of 2. Now when I look at this, the rule is still the same. You can't have a cube root or square root, any root, in the denominator. So that's not okay. So what I have to do is this. I'm going to try and make it into a perfect cube root. I want to make this number an 8. Because I know the cube root of 8 is 2. So I'm going to multiply this by the cube root of 4. Cube root of 4, cube root of 4 is going to leave me, let's see, on top, that's a whole number times a root. So leave that alone. So I'm going to get a 4 times the cube root of 4, which there is no cube root of 4. It's an ugly number. I'll show you. I'll leave it be. If you go to your math button in your calculator, here's my cube root. 4, ugly decimal, leave it the way it is, okay? All over cube root 8. Alright, now the whole point we did this is because the cube root of 8 is 2. So that becomes just a 2, and I still have 4 times the cube root of 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so I'm going to get plain old 2 times the cube root of 4, because I divided 4 by 2, whole number divided by whole number. Okay, that's 16. Now the question was also asked about number 20. Okay, and I got square root of 15 minus 5 over negative 2. So let's do that one too. So the question was, on number 20, I've got the square root of 5 over the square root of 3 plus the square root of 5. And these are weird. So I talked about that thing called the conjugate. The conjugate. It's the opposite. So I'm going to multiply this one by its opposite. Well, what is its opposite? Well, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by the opposite of this. So instead of 3 plus square root of 3 plus square root of 5, I'm going to multiply by square root of 3 minus the square root of 5. Okay? Now to keep the value of the fraction the same, you got to multiply top and bottom by the same, because you're in a sense multiplying by 1. So I got the square root of 3 minus square root of 5. So when I multiply by this, I multiply by 1. Doesn't change the value of the problem. But what will happen is this. So it will cancel the square root in the bottom. So let's do it. Okay, that times that gives me a square root of 15. That times that gives me minus the square root of 25, because I'm multiplying square root times square root. And then over, we're going to go ahead and distribute. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9. Square root of 3 times a minus square root of 5 makes a minus square root of 15. Square root of 5 times square root of 3 makes a positive square root of 15. And square root of 5 times square root of 5 is with a negative. It's going to be a negative square root of 25. Okay, so here's what's cool about this thing. A couple of things I see. Okay, why does the conjugate work? Because it makes the middle terms disappear. That's why the conjugate works. So these two middle terms disappear. Let's see what else we have. Okay, so now I also have the square root of 25, which that's a plain old number 5. I have a square root of 3 here, which that's just a number, regular old 3. And I have a square root of 25, which is a 5. Okay, well, let's see what kind of mess I have left. All right, on the top, I have a square root of 15 minus 5. Square root of 15 minus 5. Okay, and on the bottom, I have a 3 minus 5, which is a negative 2. So when I look at the problem, it no longer has a square root in the bottom. These two problems, the beginning and the end, have the exact same numerical value. However, this one does not have a square root at the bottom. Okay, last but not least question that was asked, and then I'll start the lesson. The lesson is actually pretty easy today. Last example is number 21. Okay, in 21, you've got a ratio in a rectangle. Okay, you got a rectangle. It's called the golden ratio, and this is number 21 on page 114. And you've got the ratio between length and width is 1 plus the square root of 5 to 2. Okay, so you get a ratio. So a ratio is like a fraction. So you can say the length is equal to 1 plus the square root of 5. And the ratio is the length to the width, and the width is equal to 2. Okay, so we're given some extra information on this one. We're given that the length is 62, is it meters? Yeah, 62 meters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 62 here, and then I'll cross multiply. So I'll rewrite this as 62 over W equals 1 plus square root of 5 over 2. And if I cross multiply, I'll get that will be 62 times 2 equals W times 1 plus the square root of 5. 62 times 2 is 124. And then I'm not going to multiply this through. In fact, I need to solve for W, so I'm just going to divide by 1 plus the square root of 5, because that will give me W. Okay, so if I take that and divide it by parentheses 1 plus the square root of 5, and I'll show you my calculator in a second. So here it is. I get an answer of about 38.3, which is what I had. About 38.3 meters. Okay, thank you for the question. Again, if you guys have any questions on homework, let me know and I can record it and show you. So let's move on to the lesson today. So the lesson today is actually going to be solving. Oh, actually, back up. Hold on, I got to show you yesterday's homework answers. So yesterday should have been pretty easy for everyone, because all you're going to do is graph it. So let me show you my answers. So if I graph number 1, I get negative 4 and 0. So the idea is that when you graph it, the graph, its x-intercepts show the answers. That's what we want to do, is just the connection. Number 2, the answer is at 1. Number 3, it's above the x-axis, does not cross, so it's no solution. Number 4, it crosses at 1 and 4, so those are my zeros. Number 5, it crosses only at negative 3, so that's my zeros or roots. We're going to call them both. 6 is above the x-axis, never crosses the x-axis, so there's no solution. Number 7 crosses at negative 3 and at 4, so those are my zeros or roots. Number 5, it crosses at 5, just barely touches it, so in a sense it's a double root. X equals 5, and then 9, it's above the x-axis, so no solution. Okay, hopefully that's making some sense. Okay, so let's move on into today's lesson. Okay, so, and by the way, I will be putting these grades when this chapter is over into the grade book, and it's going to go in as a test grade. So if you've been doing your homework, you're going to get an A on a test. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at today's lesson. So today's lesson, we're going to be solving quadratics. Quadratics. Okay, today is 3/20/2020. Spring is here, yay. Okay, so example 1. Let's start with an easy example. Okay, I've got an x squared equals 25. Now, if it's an x squared, go and write that down. But if it's an x squared, there has to be 2 answers. Has to be. So we could factor it and get plus or minus 5. But an easy way in this one is just to solve it. I'm going to take the opposite of a square is to square root. That's why we've been wanting to square roots. But there's got to be 2 answers. So if I take the square root of 25, I get 5. But I'm also going to get negative 5. And here's why it's got to be negative 5 also. If I put 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. But negative 5 times negative 5, negative times negative is positive. So I do get 2 answers. One way to rewrite this is x equals, and I like this, plus or minus 5. And it shows both. Okay, that's pretty easy. Okay, all right. Let's take a look at another example. Okay, example 2. I have 2x squared minus 54 equals 0. Okay, so we could factor it, but I think it'd be just easier to solve it. So to solve it, I'm going to go plus 54 plus 54. So I got a 2x squared equals 54. I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2. I get an x squared equals 54 divided by 2 is 27. I'm going to solve it by square rooting it because the square root will get rid of the x squared, but I know there's got to be 2 answers. It has to be 2 answers because x squared. So I'm going to get x equals, now watch this, plus or minus the square root of 27. Okay, that answer is okay, but I can reduce it. So I know I can reduce it because I know 9 times 3 makes 27, and 9 is a perfect square. So I'm going to reduce it. I am going to reduce it. So I'm going to rewrite this as x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9 times the square root of 3, because 3 times 9 makes 27, but 9 is a perfect square root. So the answer I want is x equals plus or minus 3 square roots of 3. That's the better answer. Okay, how am I doing? All right, good. Let's take a look at another answer. Let's take a look at this one. I'm going to flip my page. And let's do one like this. All right, got just a few problems, but okay, next example. Example 4. I'm going to have 4x squared plus 25 equals 0. Okay, let's solve. Let's go minus 25, minus 25. Okay, so we're just going to go solve minus 25, minus 25. 4x squared equals negative 25. Let's divide by 4. Divide by 4. X squared equals, what is that, 6.25? Hold on, just let me check it. 25 divided by 4 is, yeah, negative 6.25. Don't forget the negative. Now, 2 answers? Sure, except this one's a trick question. This one's a trick. Square root. Trick, trick, trick. But not us. We're going to figure it out. So what happens when you take the square root of a negative number? Well, you can't. I'll show you. Square root of a negative 6.25. Not real. It's not a real number. And we will talk someday about imaginary numbers. But for us, for right now, where we're at, we're just going to say no solution. Yesterday we looked at the graph. If you were to graph this, it would look something like this, way up at 25. You don't have to graph it. But yesterday we graphed this, and you can see there is no solution. Okay, you guys got it? But you cannot take the square root of a negative number. You can have a negative on the outside, but not inside. It's okay on the outside, but not on the inside. Okay? All right, let's do another example. And this next example is a little bit tricky, but I'll take my time. I'm going to do a couple of these, okay? Okay, next example. Example 5. I have an x minus 4 squared equals 81. Okay, now I'll take my time because this one's not too bad if you're careful. For sure, I need 2 answers. Okay, so I can't subtract the 4 yet. I can't. Can't go minus 4 because it's inside. Cannot. I can't go plus 4 plus 4. So what I'm going to do instead is get rid of this square. So I'll take the square root, because the square root of the whole thing will cancel the x squared. Just cancel. They're opposites of each other. Cancel each other. They're like opposites. So I'll square root this side. So by taking the square root, what I can do is rewrite this as just a plain old x minus 4 equals 81. Now we got to be careful because we're going to have two answers. Square root of 81 is 9, but it's also negative 9. Okay? So to get two answers at this point in time, I'm going to then make two little mini equations. So we write this as x minus 4 equals 9 and an x minus 4 equals a negative 9. Okay, and solving this is pretty easy because I've got the equal to the positive 9 and equal to the negative 9. So solving's not too bad. Plus 4 plus 4. This answers x equals 13. Plus 4 plus 4. This answers x equals negative 5. Okay, now negative answer is okay because you can plug it into the original. And negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9, but just square it and you get a positive 81. Okay, got one last example I want to do with you. Okay, one last. So let me turn the page. We're going to do one more example. Okay, and I'll be finished. Okay, so I've got a parenthesis. So let's do a 2 times an x plus 1 squared minus 10 equals 8. Oh, looks so hard. Nah, not really. We'll just do everything first. So the idea is to first get rid of all the extra numbers, okay? Looks hard, but let's go plus 10 first. Plus 10 first. And then divide by 2, whatever I get over here. And then I'll square root it, okay? All right, let's do that. So step 1. Plus 10 plus 10. Let's just get rid of all the extra numbers first. We've got a 2 times an x plus 1 squared equals 18. That was easy. Got to get rid of this 2, so I'm going to divide by 2. Cancel it out. Divide by 2. I get a parentheses x plus 1 squared equals 9. Okay. Want to get rid of the square, so I'm going to square root it because the square and the square root cancel each other out. I'm going to square root this, but I got to remember I need two answers. It's always two answers because of the x squared. So the square and the square root are like opposites. They kind of cancel each other out. I'm left with a x plus 1 equals, square root of 9 is 3, but it's also negative 3. Plus or minus 3. I'm going to go to my mini equations and I'm going to go an x plus 1 equals 3 and x plus 1 equals a negative 3. Minus 1, x equals 2. Minus 1, x equals negative 2. Alright, and oh, I did make a mistake. Alright, there we go. Shoot. Minus 4. I was like, that didn't make any sense. There we go. I did make a mistake. 3 and negative 3. Okay, there we go. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes. Alright, so the homework for today, you guys, out of your journal. It's the next section. I'm going to show you what I want you to do. You're going to go section 4-3. And you can see all of these. I want you 1 to 25 odd. Number 1. When you take the square root, you're probably going to get no solution, but I'll let you do that. I'm going to bring over the negative 24, but the odds, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all the way until you get to the back side. 25, and 25's got a story problem, but I'll let you work on these. Okay, so that's the homework assignment. Page 123, page 123 is page 123, and of course 124, 1 to 25 odd. So let me know if you have any questions and I can videotape it. Okay, that's good.